in the last week of the regular season, the NBA basketball. Well, this is the gateway to summer. Joining us right now to celebrate it, the one, the only, hopefully not in a dark garage in a car where he was last time, Frankie Cartoscelli. Good morning.
Good morning. We are back in the car. Car's off.
Back in the car. Okay, car is off.
Car's off after the 2 wins.
2 wins. 2 wins means the keys are not in the ignition. We're keeping the keys out right now.
And if you're wondering why Frankie is in the car, anybody who has ever had children or been around new children, it's always a funny thing. Something that you could very easily toss 50 yards if you want to do that has no defensive whatsoever. 5 minutes after birth runs your entire life, as Frankie is experiencing right now. Like, you would be, listen, no doubt about it. I've never seen you in a fight, but I would imagine I would favor you heavily over your baby in a boxing match. But that doesn't. I
don't know, man.
Doesn't matter. That baby owns you, dude.
I think the baby's got
he's
size
strong.
Frankie.
He's strong, and yeah, I'm a small guy, so he's already kind of catching up. And it's funny that my friend's already joking about how he's 100% going to be the kind of guy that's going to get older and back me down on the driveway. It's just not even a thought in anyone's head. So we'll see. He's a strong guy, but a good sleeper. And one thing that we don't want to mess with, where my little work area there is next to the room. And when I'm coming on with you fine people, my voice can sometimes wake him up, and we're gonna let him sleep so that mom's happy and little Frank has a good day here.
Now the baby brings the boom, is what you're saying.
Boom.
Baby brings the boom. Right now, he's not bringing the boom, though. He's bringing the Z.
Oh, guarantee he's bringing some booms. Frankie, very easy question to start off so we can ease into the interview. The Kings lost last week to the Wizards. They beat the Cavs in Cleveland to sweep them. They are 6-1 versus Boston, Cleveland, and Houston. Why?
Great question.
Thanks.
It's a great question. It does seem like for whatever reason they play up to their opponents, and you can look at the recent track record and say that kind of doesn't really measure up. But like you mentioned, they have some pretty notable wins, some pretty notable, you can say, quote unquote, signature wins. And now we're not going to sit here in the last week of the season and say that's a signature win of the season against Cleveland when they're 2 games under 500. But I think it just kind of shows that the Jekyll and Hyde kind of makeup that this team has, how horrible they can look one week and how great they can look the next. And you beat the Charlotte Hornets handedly, as you should. You lose to the Wizards, as you shouldn't. And then you go back and you stun the Cavs, who are on pace to win, I think, 65 games or so. They're at 62 right now. So it's head scratching, but also it kind of makes you think that and you guys talked about it earlier, if the Kings could play spoiler in the playoffs or make a series out of a potential first round matchup. It's hard to say, but I do think that shows kind of that the Kings are dangerous. They're one of the more dangerous teams, I think, in that kind of play-in mix. Definitely more so, I think, than Phoenix or Dallas. So, you look at what those potential 7-8 games look like. If the Kings, like you said, you feel confident they could beat Dallas, and, we'll see if that happens, if it takes place. It looks like the Kings are probably going to be in that 9-10 game. But if you assume the Kings win that 9-10 game, you're going to have the Kings against one of those teams we talked about, against the Denver, the Clippers, the Warriors, the Grizzlies, a team that's probably, a lot of people didn't expect to be in a play-in game. It's going to be kind of a similar spot. Which team will show up in a game against an opponent that's that well outweighs the Kings? And entering last night, against teams that are over 500, they had a record of 11-26. It just makes no sense that the Kings somehow have 2 wins against the Cavs in there.
Frankie, this was something G-Man said at the end of the broadcast last night to Henry and I in the postgame, that he goes, it's kind of been underreported, and partly because they are on the road. But after the Washington game, G-Man said the team had a players meeting, which, that can happen multiple times during a year, and there's different values to all those kind of things. But he said, amongst other things, that just a ton of communication, a lot of talk amongst the players. And what I'm only speculating here, but would love your thought or opinion on it, that I wonder how much of that was trying to get a little bit more out of Zach, because he's too good to not have a high volume of shots and to not be scoring in the last 2 games that they've won. He's been aggressive. He's shot a lot. He's made shots. And again, I guess I'm just asking you to guess or speculate on that, but maybe more of the impact that this team can have when Zach is aggressive offensively.
Well, they need him to be. And I think that when you look at what was happening with Zach and the personal aspects of everything, and it's kind of impossible. I mean, they're human beings. It's going to leak into job performance. I think that That's natural. And kind of the ability to bounce back, though, and be the Zach LaVine that the Kings acquired when, how great he played when they first kind of had him. The first couple of games were rough, but he hit that kind of good stretch. I'm just going to look at his recent track record here. The Kings are 10-3, and it's just kind of a specific stat, but 10-3 when Zach LaVine scores 22 or more. They're 1-10 when he scores under 20. So they really need him to play, not out of his mind. Like last night, that's great. Seeing Zach LaVine score 37 points, kind of take over, that's ideal. You want that every night if you can. But just being a guy who's going to take 10, 15 shots a game, which isn't asking too much. Zach LaVine taking less than 10 field goal attempts, I think has happened 4 times in his Kings career. They're 0-4 in those games. That's something that just can't happen. And you look back and kind of to the past of De'Aaron Fox, who was kind of that focal point, or the Kings quote unquote 1A, that would never happen. We'd be talking in circles about De'Aaron Fox taking 9 field goal attempts in a Kings loss. And I think Zach LaVine is someone who has the ability to get going from 3, like unlike we've seen a Kings player do in recent memory. I mean, just seeing him kind of get going from beyond the arc. And I think that, we've said it on the Aaron Allen show, every time the ball leaves his hands, you think it's going to go in because the shot looks that good, and it is that good. And you see last night what it looks like when he's dialed in. But, the Kings right now, there's 4 games left. You have to hope this can continue to carry on, because it looks like, again, that they're probably going to be in that play-in game. All those conversations about maybe the Kings can miss it and retain that draft pick. I mean, I think that they'd have to completely blow it down the final stretch here to miss the plan. So at this point, it's kind of a matter of, and as a fan too, that perspective, what do you care about more? I mean, if they are going to make the plan and they're going to, let that draft pick go to Atlanta, would you rather them be competitive and build off of this going into the offseason, or would you rather them kind of just, go out with a whimper? And I think Zach LaVine playing at a high level, like I said, makes them a very interesting and even dangerous team in a play-in setting. Because if you get this far and you're in the play-in game, to quote Major League, and I'll leave out the bad word there, but not win the whole thing and just kind of get into the playoffs, get into the show. And Zach LaVine's going to be a huge point of emphasis to get there.
Frankie Cartoscelli joining us. I'm going to give you the counter that no one wants to hear. I would probably, I was telling Jason earlier, listen, in a vacuum, I was cheering. I was into it. I love that they beat the Cavs. But the 50,000-foot view for me, Frankie, is this. I actually would rather them go in with a whimper. Here's my worry. I don't want ownership and front office sitting around going, I mean, this team was 6-1 versus 3 of the top 4 seeds. They won this, they won that. You either believe this team's core at its soul is not a contender or anywhere close, or you don't. And I'm just not entirely sure that this group of players, in fact, I'm fairly sure that it isn't. This group of players, as we know it, this is a play-in team, maybe an 8 seed, maybe a 7 seed, but certainly not a title contender. And if you believe that, the last thing I want is for the front office or anyone associated with making decisions to have some sort of confidence going into the offseason.
Yeah, that's a fine line to navigate, for sure. But, I mean, and I'm sure you mentioned before, Dave, and I've heard similar things, that whether we like it or not, it does seem like the Kings seem much more apt to retool than rebuild. It seems like rebuilding is not really on this team's radar at the moment, and that's kind of their own fault. They're at the mercy of the contracts that they've, handed out or acquired. And that flexibility is going to be pretty tough going in the offseason. And I think that you shouldn't, and at least the front office shouldn't, or fan how you want to fan, but I won't. Right. At least look at it as, if the Kings win the 9-10 play-in game and then they win the 7-8, say they beat Memphis or the Clippers, and they get to a first round series against the Thunder, they lose in 5. I don't think you can sit there and put your hands behind your head and say, okay, this was a successful year. This was exactly what we set out to do. We wanted to make the playoffs. We did. Now we can roll out the same core and same situation. I don't think so, but I think you can kind of look at what takes place over the next couple of weeks and evaluate, what has worked well or what could work well with a new kind of direction or kind of a similar direction, as far as maybe obviously Keegan Murray, build around him. Is Domas still your focal point of the franchise? You're going to have conversations with him. Is Zach LaVine someone who you feel confident going through a full off season, going through a full training camp, maybe bring in a true point guard and trying to kind of roll it back out next year? What does Burgess Malik Monk fit? Is he going to be a 6-man next year? Is he someone that would want to benefit from a change of scenery? These are questions that are going to have to be answered this offseason, and I think everything's on the table. But, when you're in a situation where you're possibly going to be hosting a winner go home postseason game, I just look at it as a matter of, from my own perspective, if you got this far, you lost a draft pick, see how far you can go and how far you can take it. And like you talked about, Dave, it's a fantasy basketball team of talent. But as we saw last night, they still can be dangerous if things are clicking. And I'm not saying they're going to win a first-round series, but and we saw the team in Washington. That team could easily show up in a winner-go-home game. A winner-go-home game against the Mavericks, mind you. That's not a guarantee the Kings are going to beat Dallas Mavericks. That's Anthony Davis back in the fold. Klay Thompson, maybe he has a redemption arc to an 0-10 last year in a play-in game. Maybe he gets his get-back at Sacramento this year. That'd be an interesting storyline. But I don't think any of the results over the next 2 weeks should push the organization in that direction of, wow, they made the first round. Time to kind of roll it back out and stay with it. I think there needs to be changes. There needs to be some adjustments. I do think if the Kings were going to refuse to tear it down, which it seems like they're going to, they do have some good players they can kind of build around. And I'm looking mostly at Keegan and, one or both of Levine and Sabonis. And, DeRozan, I think a lot of people think that he's going to be looking at different possibilities this offseason as far as trade. And we'll see if that happens. But, here we are, April 7th. The Kings are, pretty much a win and the Suns lost away from clinching a postseason spot. And now we kind of see how this all unfolds.
Frankie, what about a thought on tonight? Detroit to wrap up the trip, final road game of the regular season. The Pistons kind of started the end, I guess, for Mike Brown and what turned out to be the end of De'Aaron Fox. But a rematch with Detroit. What do you think about tonight's matchup? Yeah,
another tough matchup for the Kings. And like we talked about, which team will show up tonight? Will we see another kind of Cavs situation, or will we look back to Washington? And this is not the old Detroit Pistons, as we've learned. And that definitely was a game we'll look back on, I think, years from now and kind of, laugh in disappointment about just that 4-point play at the end of regulation. But it's a team that they really love to attack the paint. I think they're top 5 in points in the paint per game, and not quite a team that can hurt you on the perimeter. And the Kings right now, they've been doing a very good job of containing the perimeter. We'll see if they can do it again. But over the past 4 games, they've held opponents to 31% from 3. That's well below the 39% clip they held opponents to for the past 15 games before that. So, which is insane. But, another game that you look at, if they win it, all but guarantees they make the play-in. Iffy, I guess. But we'll see how it unfolds. And, obviously Cade Cunningham is the guy you want to keep your eye on. And will Keegan Murray be back in the fold for tonight? We're still waiting to hear how his availability will look. But final road game of the year, and see if the Kings can finish the road trip strong and head back for the final 3 games.
Last thing for you. If the Kings were somehow able to get past the Thunder and win the title, would you consider that a successful season?
I guess it'd be all right. I mean, I guess it'd be
all right.
It'd be decent. Would Royale be there to witness it?
Because I think that better be.
You're damn right he
would. That'd make it a success, I think. If Royale was there to light the beam after the Kings hold up the Larry O'Brien.
More hot takes like that and so many more from Frankie coming up, not just on Twitter, follow him, but also SactownSports.com for all your analysis as we head into what is most likely at least some of the postseason. Frankie, appreciate you. Looking forward to previewing that postseason next week. Take care.
Can't wait, fellas. Have a great week.
You too. Bye-bye. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll take a first real look at the Kings versus Pistons tonight. Remember, that is an early start, just a 1-minute break here. And also something we got to mention, big time sports history over the weekend as well. We'll get to it next.
The only place you'll find Malik Monk is Sactown Sports.
Oh my, what an athletic move that time by Malik Monk.
Hey Sacramento, it's Malik Monk and you're listening to the home of the Sacramento Kings, Sactown Sports.
Your local sports leader.
Have you ever dreamed of shopping for the perfect jewelry from home? Well, now it's possible, and you can even build your credit. PrestigiOJewelers.com now offers online shopping, making us the premium credit jeweler nationwide. With an exceptional selection of fine jewelry, from engagement rings and gold chains to sparkling diamond earrings and much more. With over 30 years of experience, Prestigio guarantees you'll find exactly what you're looking for. It's fast and easy. Once approved, you'll receive a guaranteed credit line from $400 to $10,000. All you need is to be 18 years or older, have a valid form of ID, be employed for a minimum of 6 months, and a bank account for automatic payments. PrestigioJewelers.com is the perfect way to establish or reestablish your credit, with interest rates at only 2.25% per month. We are here to help you with monthly reporting to all major credit bureaus. The perfect jewelry, the perfect price, helping you build perfect credit. Visit us online at prestigiojewelers.com or at one of our locations in Sacramento, Stockton, Merced, and Fresno. Enter code